Alright, YouTubers, so I tried to make a video and I already made one and it was a real bummer, so I scrapped it. And then I was trying to make this one and my brother-in-law just like shows up out of the blue, just got out of Afghanistan like a couple days ago, and just shows up on my porch. So here's a quick story. Best surprise I ever did. When I was in Baghdad, I was one of the first people to go on leave, and you know, I was only in country 2 months and I went on leave. Well, I flew back to the DC area where my family's from, and got to the airport. I was flying in uniform, and instead of getting a cab, a guy offered to give me a ride because it was on the way to wherever he was going. So I come into my house in uniform, and my parents are upstairs. I knock on the door, and they have no idea what, you know. I walk in and just like surprise my parents out of the blue. So that was probably one of the best ones I ever did. Anyway, last time you saw a video from me was probably the last time I had a haircut. So another thing I wanted to throw at you before I get to this video. As of 5 days ago, the 14th, July 14th, this is my 4th year of sobriety. 4 years since I've drank any liquor, beer, whatever. Haven't smoked any doobies, you know, not getting into any of that. And it's because Jesus Christ delivered me. I was a alcoholic for 9 straight years. By the time 4 years ago, I was drinking 5-6 days a week. You know, couldn't come home from work without getting a 6-pack. You know, I'd be driving home, trying to just get to the house, then I'd hear, "Go buy a 6-pack. Go get a 6-pack." And you know, I couldn't fight it. You know, that's the thing about drinking. You know, you may think it's fun when you're starting out, but eventually it goes from you running the show to it running the show, and when it takes over, it is a mean master. So it's been 4 years since I've been delivered from alcohol. Praise Jesus. So lifting his name up before I get to any of this other stuff. So just what's been going on with me. You know, last time you saw me, I did the healing video with Yonte, and since that time, Satan has really, I guess he felt threatened by me because he's really been turning up the heat on me. You know, I was, you know, witnessing on the streets, commanding healing in Jesus' name, you know, making videos, edifying Jesus, and just, you know, I guess Satan got uncomfortable, so he's really been turning up the heat on me. But, you know, not only that, also near the time of that video, I finished the longest fast that I've ever done, and I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking in tongues. Something I'd, you know, thought about pursuing for quite a while. If you guys want to debate about whether tongues is authentic or whatever, you're gonna have a hard time convincing me because I do it. I speak it. So I guess Satan got a little uncomfortable with that. You know, I've done a little, you know, been studying deliverance and stuff. I did some videos about that if you want to look into that. But, you know, been attacking that as well. But, you know, in all honesty, it's just, I've just gotten overwhelmed. You know, it's hard to keep up with all this. I got so many people sending me messages. I apologize to those of you that I haven't gotten back to because, you know, when I'm out on the road, all I've got, you know, I've got my computer, but, you know, I'm driving 10+ hours a day sometimes. You know, I might be able to read something on my phone, but, you know, I can't be sitting there, you know, driving a 18-wheeler 70 miles an hour trying to return messages. So, you know, I apologize for not getting back to people. You know, also I'm just stressed out, overwhelmed. You know, it's like there's just so much going on. You know, everything in the news is straight out of the Bible. You know, there's all kinds of stuff showing the mark of the beast in preparation. One world government, our government, you know, being thrown under the bus by Obama nation himself. You know, so it's just, after a while you get tired of looking at all of it. You know, I still pay attention to the important stuff. I still believe that September is going to be climactic. That's my word I like for that, climactic. You know, because you got this Elenin thing going on, you know, whatever your opinion is on that, whether it's a comet or a planet or whatever, I lean towards the opinion of it's going to be something devastating. Or at least it's going to alter things the way we know it. And then, you know, you got Palestine wanting to become a state in September. That's a big deal, according to Bible prophecy. And you got so many other things. So, you know, I'm watching the big things, but I'm just... in general, I'm just kind of overwhelmed and just burned out on all the conspiracy theory kind of stuff, you know. Heart rings and this and that and everything. And I'm just like, you know, we're not called to sit here and just focus on all the rotten stuff the government's doing, all that they're you know, trying to do to wreck our country and everything. You know, I understand it's important to us because, you know, most of us grew up in this country and this country's near and dear to us. We hate to see it being torn apart like this. But at the same time, the Bible doesn't tell us anywhere to focus on that. The Bible tells us to focus on being about the Father's business, about, you know, sharing the gospel and reaching the lost. And, you know, I'm out on the roads all day long. There's no shortage of lost people. They're a dime a dozen. You know, there's just so many people out there that don't know the truth, and they're just wrapped up in this worldliness, this, you know, this, the same thing that the devil's been attacking me with, you know, chasing materialism, wasting your time, watching TV, playing games, you know, how do you edify the Lord or, you know, serve the Lord by playing Call of Duty or World of Warcraft for 10 hours straight, you know? How are you witnessing to people and being about the Father's business doing that? You know, and I'm not just pointing the finger. I've done dumb stuff like that myself. What's that verse? Ephesians 5:16 talks about redeeming the time, for the days are evil. You know, so there's no shortage of things that we can be doing to be goofing off. And, you know, I'm guilty myself, so I'm not just pointing the finger, but, you know, I am asking for your prayers that, you know, the Lord just keep my eyes on Him, stay on the narrow path, and not get sidetracked when we're so close to the finish line. And it's so difficult. You know, the entire world is against you as a Christian. You know, everything is geared to get your attention, to, you know, tell you that following Jesus is a waste of time and that it's, you know, just foolishness and all this stuff. Well, is it a waste of time if it saves your soul for eternity? You know, I fully believe that hell is a real place and a majority of people are going there. And it's because, you know, they may believe in Jesus in their mind, but they don't have a relationship with Him in His heart. They're not serving Him. And, you know, they try and live both ways, you know. Oh, I believe in Jesus, but at the same time, I can go out and live however I want. And I do not believe the Bible supports that in any way. You know, it says, present your body a living sacrifice. Let me dig that verse up so I don't misquote it. Romans 12:1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. You know, it's your reasonable service. Jesus left paradise, you know, which I'd imagine I wouldn't want to do. I mean, it's perfect up there. Why would you want to go up there to come down here, be rejected, scoffed at, mocked, blasphemed, you know, and have your own creation hating you and killing you and, you know, just doing all this stuff? You know, He was a holy sacrifice for us, and it's our reasonable service to be a holy sacrifice to Him. You know, be not conformed to the world. So, you know, it's so hard these days, you know. Like I said before, the entire world is against you. So, I was trying to be an open book with you guys. I was trying to be, you know, blunt and straight to the point. you know, these days, because of the trucking job, I have a real hard time reading the Bible as much as I should. And I will tell you from personal experience that if you're not in your Word, you're not reading your Word, you will shrivel up like a plant without water. You know, I feel dry and shriveled up myself right now. So what I wanted to ask you is if you know of a good audio Bible that you could recommend, preferably something free. And what I'll do is just put it on an MP3 disc or something so I can just play it all day long in my truck. You know, I currently have the Word of Promise, New Testament. It's New King James, and while I like the New King James, that's what I normally read. I don't know. I don't click with that audio Bible. You know, there's a lot of famous actors that are on it, and I kind of feel like they did it for a job instead of because, you know, they're Christians motivated to, you know, want to get the gospel and all that out there. So, you know, that version feels like over-commercialized to me or something. So, if you know of a version that really connects with you, something that you know from experience, please share it with me. I've also had a lot of trouble with my prayer life, you know, just like I said, I'm being straight with you, I'm being honest. You know, anybody that says this Christian walk is easy is a liar. You know, if you're out there doing what you're supposed to be doing, attacking Satan's kingdom and trying to reach the lost, you know, it's like being in the army, you know, going to war. If you're out on the front line shooting at the enemy's going to shoot back. But if you're, you know, hiding on base, you know, hiding in the four walls of your church, then you're not that big of a deal to the enemy, and he's not going to waste his time with you. You know, so I believe I'm being attacked because of that, because I've gone out and tried to, you know, go on the offensive instead of on the defensive. You know, and like I said, my prayer life, my Bible reading isn't what it should be. So I'd appreciate your prayers in that area. I do want to get videos out to you guys. But, you know, I got struggles just like everybody, you know. It's tough, man. Trying to juggle a regular life and trying to juggle, you know, a Christian walk can be very taxing. You know, it's like a juggling act. I don't have anything to juggle. But so that's what's going on, you know. Sorry I haven't really been in touch with people. But I mean, you got to look at it from my shoes, you know. I got a full-time job. When I get home, I got a wife that, you know, I only see 2 days a week, so I got to, you know, pay her due attention and then somehow squeeze this YouTube into there too. So I got a couple things I've been watching. Maybe I'll get something out to you soon. But, you know, please just pray that the Lord continues to use me and just mold me to perform His will and not mine. You know, I'd hate to get this late in the race and end up stumbling. So, stay in the fight, YouTubers. Bear each other's burdens, and I just hope you'll lift me up. And you know, Jesus, it's got to be about Jesus. And you know, I've failed at that. You know, it's like I stepped out of the boat, and then I looked at the water instead of looking at Jesus. I started sinking. So time to get the eyes back on Jesus. Know what I'm saying? If you're going through the same thing, same advice. Get your eyes back on Jesus. Get back in your Word, because that's what I'm going to do. See you next time.